Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We from group 6. We will explain about assessing speaking. And in this group member is me, Intan Salwa Hamidah, and my friends Meyta Rahma Sari, Fia Aurella Sasmitha, and Fitri Hayati Maulidina. And this is the outline. In a limited context of speech, example, monologue, speech, storytelling, reading aloud, we can just spoken language without the oral participation of the interlocutor. Although speaking is a productive skill that can be observed directly and empirically, the observation is always colored by the accuracy and effectiveness of the taker's listening skills, which of course juvenilize the reliability and validity of the oral production task. Basic types of speaking. The first, imitative. Performance is the ability to simply imitate a word or perhaps a sentence. Conclusions are made about the test taker's ability to understand or convey meaning or to participate in interactive conversation. The only role that listening has in this case is short-term storage long enough for the respondent to retain the comment given. The second one is intensive. The second type of speech often used in assessment is grammatical, phrase, lexical, or phonological, such as prosodic element, intonation, stress, rhythm, intersection. The speaker must be aware of the semantic nature of responding, but minimal interaction with in the interlocutor or test administrator. Intensive assessment tasks may include direct response tasks, requests for the production of specific speech, reading aloud, sentence, and dialogue completion. Limited pictorial tasks, including simple sequence and translating of up to simple sentence level. The third one is responsive. Responsive assessment tasks include interaction and the comprehension, but at the somewhat limited level of very short conversation, standard greetings, and small talk, simple requests and comment, and the like. The stimulus is almost always a spoken prompt to preserve authenticity, with perhaps only one or two follow-up questions or retorts. And the fourth, interactive. The difference between responsive and interactive speaking lies in the length and the complexity of the interaction, which sometimes involve multiple exchanges and or multiple participants. Interaction can be divided into two types. A. Transactional language, which aim to exchange certain information, and B. Interpersonal exchange, which aim to maintain social relation. And the last one, extensive. Language style is often more deliberative, involved in planning and formal for a wide range of tasks, but we cannot rule out certain informal monologue, such as a casually delivered speech, remembering a vacation in the mountains, delivering a recipe for an excellent primavera pasta, telling novel or film plot.
Microskill and macroskill of speaking. The microskills refer to producing the smaller chunk of language such as phonemes, morphemes, words, collocation, and phrasal units. And the macro skill imply the speaker focus on the large elements such as fluency, discourse, function, style, coercion, nonverbal communication, and strategic option. As shown below, 16 different micro skills and macro skills can be used to assess speaking ability. Micro skill and macro skill of oral production. This is the 16 different micro skills and macro skills can be used to assess speaking ability. Micro skills. 1. Produce difference among English phonemes and allophones. 2. Produce chunks of language of different length. 3. Produce English stress patterns. 4. Produce reduced form of word and phrases. 5. Use an adequate number of lexical units. 7. Monitor one's own oral production. 8. Use grammatical word classes and system. 9. Produce speech in natural constituents. 10. Express a particular meaning in different grammatical. 11. Use choices and devices in spoken. The next one is macro skill. 12. Appropriately accomplish communicative function according to situation, participant, and goals. 13. Use appropriate styles, register, implicator, redundancies, pragmatic convention, conversation rules, floor keeping, floor yielding, interrupting, and other sociolinguistic features in face-to-face conversation. 14. Convey and connection between event and communicate such relation as vocal and peripheral ideas, event and feelings, new information and given information, generalization and exemplification. 15. Convey facial feature, kinetics, body language, and other nonverbal cues along with verbal language. 16. Develop and use a battery of speaking strategies such as emphasizing keyword, rephrasing, providing a context of interpreting the meaning of words, appealing for help, and accurate assessing how well your interlocutor understands you. Designing assessment text, imitative speaking, word and sentence repetition text. Test taker here, repeat after me, beat pause, bed pause, vet pause, a boat yesterday, the glow of the candle is glowing, when did they go on vacation, do you like coffee? Test takers repeat the stimulus. The longer the stretch of language, the more possibility for error and therefore the more difficult it becomes to assign a point system to the text. In such a case, it may be imperative to score only the criterion of the text. The next one is scoring scale for repetition text. 2 for acceptable pronunciation, 1 for comprehensible, partially correct pronunciation, 0 for silent, seriously incorrect pronunciation. The longer the stretch of language, the more possibility for error, and therefore the more difficult it becomes to assign a point system to the text. In such a case, it may be imperative to score only the criterion of the text. For example, in the sentence, when did they go on vacation? Because the criterion is following intonation for the question. Points should be regardless of any other mispronunciation.
Okay, let's move on to intensive speaking. To test the ability to show production of short stretches of oral language designed to demonstrate a number of short-form oral expression, grammatical, phonological, phrasal, and lexical entities that are associated with prosodic elements, intonation, stress, rhythm, and juncture. Okay, now example of intensive assessment. 1. Directed response test. 2. Reading aloud. 3. Sentence and dialogues completion. 4. Limited picture tasks including simple sequence. 5. Translation up to the simple sentence level. And then we are talking about responsive speaking. Short response involving insert conversation, presenting, greeting, responding to small talk, answering simple requests. Responsive is slightly more complex than intensive, but the difference is blurry, to say the least. At this level, the dialogue includes a simple question with a follow-up question or two. Conversation take place by this point, but are simple in content. This is an example of responsive assessment. Number 1 is question and answer. Number 2 is giving instruction and direction. And 3, and the last one is paraphrasing.
Okay, I can explain about designing assessment tasks. Interactive speaking, interview, role play, discussion and conversation, games, ICTVL, oral proficiency interview. Interview. The first thing that's come to mind in oral interview. A test administrator and a test taker sit down in direct face-to-face in chat and first talk a protocol of question and directive. The interview, which might be recorded for listening, is then scored on one more parameter such as query and pronunciation and or grammar, vocabulary usage, fluency, sociolinguistic or parametric, appropriateness, tax as complement, and even comprehension. The success of oral interview depends on clearly specifying administrative procedure of the assessment or practicality, focusing the question and probes on the purpose of the assessment or validity, appropriately elicting an optimal amount and quality of oral production by the test taker or a beside for the performance, minimizing the possibly harmful effect to the power relationship between interviewer and interview or beside for the best performance, and then creating a consistent, workable scoring system or reliability. Misal Knell says postpone a framework for oral proficiency testing that has without the test of time. He says guess that test taker perform at their best if they are played clock for a stage. Wrap up in a minute or so of preliminary small talk. Level check. Talk a series of plain question. Probe question and prompts challenge test takers to go to the height of their ability. When done, the final page of the interview is simply a short period of the during which the interviewer encourages the test taker to relate with some easy question. Next, role play. Role-playing is a popular pedagogical activity and communicative language teaching class. Role-play is a free student to be somewhat creative in their linguistic output. In some versions, role-play allows some rehearsal time so that students can map out what they are going to say. It also has the effect of reducing anxieties as students can even for a few moments text on the persona of someone other than themselves or they say. Discussion and conversation. Discussion and conversation with and among groups of students are difficult to specify and even more difficult to score, says Nakat Suhara. As informal techniques to access learners, discussion may be especially appropriate text talk with tools and observe such ability as topic nomination, main stance, and termination. And next, attention-getting, interrupting, for holding and control, clarifying, questioning, and paraphrasing. Comprehensional, nodding, example is ha, or negotiation meaning, intoning patterns for parametric event, kinesis, eye contact, proxemics, body language, and politeness, formality, and other sociolinguistic factors. Next, games. Using games with language variation as informal assessment is useful formative nature for students, not for the summative evaluation with feedback for the student. Example about assessment games. Ticker's toy structure is built behind a screen. One or two learners are allowed to view the structure in successive stages of construction. The learners tell runners who cannot observe the structure how to recreate the structure. And crossword puzzles are created in which the names of all members of a class are called by observed information about them. Information categories are created such that class members must conduct mini interview of other classmates to complete boxes. And the last one is cheaty maps are distributed to class members. Next is Fia Aurella Proficiency Interview. The Fia OP is currently used worldwide by academic institutions, government agency, and private corporation for purposes such as academic placement, student assessment, program evaluation, professional certificate, hiring, and promotional qualification. OP is designed to acquire pronunciation, fluently and interactive, sociolinguistic, cultural knowledge, grammar, and vocabulary. Essential of OP proficiency guidelines for speaking that includes 10 possible levels. Is advanced, intermediate, and novice category is contain 3 sub-levels: high, mid, and low. Signing assessment, intensive speaking, oral presentation, throughout storytelling, retelling a story, news event, translation of standard post, phrases. Oral presentation. Oral assessment will not be complete without consideration of presentation assessment as a form of assessing and evaluating. Effective assessment must apply determining the criteria, assigning appropriate text, and obtaining optional result. And last one, establish practical and reliable assessment produced. Next is true coach storytelling. The most Common techniques for extracting oral production is stock visual pictures, photographs, diagrams, and charts. A series of pictures as a stimulus to a longer story or description so that skill develop. Detailing a story news event. The purpose of this talk is to listen to understanding, communicating thoughts and relationship of event, stress and emphasis patterns, expression in the case of dramatic story, fluence and interaction with listeners. Last is translation of extant prose. Participants are given a long text that is read in the original language and then translated into English. The text can enter many fronts: a dialogue, instruction for assembling a product, synopsis of a story, play or movie, interaction on how to find something on the map, and other genre. The advantages of translation lay in mastery of content, vocabulary, and to some extent grammatical and discourse features. And then the disadvantage in the translation of longer text is a highly special skill for which some individuals